Okay, so um, currently I'm teaching perspective at Lugano College of Art and Design, and there's some things that I've noticed that that my students in general don't think about. So we're going to talk about designing a space. So we are learning 1 point perspective right now, but we get into 2, 3, and multiple point perspective. But we start simple with 1 point perspective, and we generally use a kitchen to learn the concepts of 1 point perspective. I find a kitchen is the most lively room in the house. It's an interior, which is important to learn how to draw an interior. It's much easier to fudge an exterior than it is an interior. So I could actually get some tangible feedback visually from their work. But I think it's really important to understand design, right? So I first have them block in a topographic map, so a plan, elevation, so one plan and multiple elevations. So for this, in this particular instance, I would have a back elevation and a right and left elevation, and I would have a floor plan. And what this would give me is it would give me the location of all of my objects within a grid that's a specific units scale. So let's say I have a kitchen that's 20 feet long and 15 feet deep. I would need to then map out and understand and be concerned with standard proportions of designing a space for a human, right? So in general, cabinets range from 2.5 to 3 feet high. There's usually about 1.5 to 2 feet difference between the top of the cabinet and the next, and the wall cabinets. And the wall cabinets are generally 1 foot to 1.5 feet out, whereas your standard cabinets, your countertops, are around 2 feet to 2.25 feet from the wall. So this gives us a sort of a space that we can relate to. I'm 6'2", and so I bend over the counters to do the dishes or to cut my food, whereas the average kitchen is built for someone who's 5.5 feet, around 5.5 feet, and so that their arms rest easily on the cabinets or rest easy on the the countertops. They could reach the cabinets and reach the lower shelves pretty easily. They would need a step stool to reach the upper shelves. I can reach the upper shelves easy, but I can't do things on the counter easily. And so you just have to be aware that you are a human of a particular height, and that these things exist for you because humans buy kitchens, humans buy spaces. They build spaces and they live in spaces that are built for humans. Humans that range an average of 5.5 feet. So with that said, there's a few things to notice within the drawing that I have in front of me. I've got a lot of scale cues. I have a lot of unit-based scale cues. So if we look on the right-hand side, we have little, on this wall on the right-hand side, we've got, I mean, everybody has done this with their kids, or as they were a kid, they would measure their height as they grew in age. This is a scale cue. This gives us an idea that that someone who is small is viewing this scene. So the eye height is approximately 1.5 feet, a foot off the ground. Also notice that the center line is to the right-hand side of the image. This gives us this nice foreground object here, which blocks some of the view back here and gives us some depth. And it also allows us to see into the cabinets that are facing away or facing they're parallel to the viewer's line of sight. So we're seeing a little bit into these spaces. Otherwise, if the center of vision was right here, we wouldn't see into these spaces. They would be perfectly flat and we'd start getting tangents. So there's the pictorial space, and then there's the physical space. There's a few things to notice with the physical space. One is the floor tiles. I'm using these to dictate units. So each one of these are a unit deep. So this right here will give us an idea that this cabinet right here is 3 units deep, which is 3 feet. So we have 3 feet, and then we have 2 cabinet doors. We've got thickness of the doors. We've got thickness here on the mat. We've got this little alcove where our feet can go. So if you walk up to this cabinet, your feet will go underneath, and then the rest of the countertops are out another few inches. So we've got, maybe 2 to 3 inches going under and 2 to 3 inches coming out. So that's 6 inches. That's half a foot. So your foot, my foot is a foot long, right? So I've got 12-inch foot. So I would still be out away from the cabinets probably about 6 inches, maybe a little less, maybe about 3 inches. Whereas someone with smaller feet, they wouldn't need to move forward onto the cabinets much in order to have access to the countertops. So there's logic to all this stuff, right? There's this sort of zigzag shape because we need part of our feet to go under here so that our body can stand and still lean close to the countertops and we can get our work done. There's usually framing for everything as well. So where these cabinets meet the ceiling, we've got this little this area of coping that sticks out a little bit further. That's just to sort of top it off. Also, there's most likely to lower the cabinets a little bit, and then there's probably a little bit of a space up there. It's just something nice to look at. It has less of a function and more of an appeal, an aesthetic appeal. Also, notice that my refrigerator is not sitting flush on the ground. It is up slightly, and then the thickness of the doors. I've been seeing a lot of the sketches without this thick doors that are on refrigerators. They're used for insulation so that the cold can stay in. And I see cabinets that are just squares on, the cabinet doors that are just squares on the flat surface. There's no thickness, there's no divide, there's no separation. I also don't see, like, if there's a mat on the ground, I don't see the thickness of that. I'm not seeing floor tiles. I'm not seeing overlap of shape. Like these curtains right here are on a curtain rod that's hanging out in front of the window. And then the window has 2 layers. So we've got the sliding part of the window and we've got the static part of the window. We've also got coping on the window, or framing, to sort of set this object in. So when they're building these frames, there's actually a sill, so there's just a big hole, and then one side of the window already has the frame on it, and then they shove it in, and then on the other side they have to put the other coping on and then screw in that that frame, and then it sort of compresses or sandwiches both sides together while holding it in place, because part of it is along the wall. It's a little hard to explain. Let me draw it real quick. It'll be easier for me to draw this. Give me a second while Photoshop catches up. I know that this is a really dry subject matter. Believe me, I know it. But it's well worth understanding it. So if I was building, let's just do a cross section. do a cross section of a window. So basically, on one side we have this frame that's coming out, and then this is half of the window sill right here, and then there's a little bit of thickness to these objects here. And let's say this is the wall right here, and then this is where the hole in the wall is. So this is, again, a cross section. And then on the other side, we have the full window. So this would go on the outside. And this would actually have the window inside of it. So with the glass. And the sliding element of the window. So we'd have the two. We'd have the upper portion, which would have the frame. This brush was probably a bad idea to use. So we've got the glass. We've got the little frame. And so this part right here, this part slides up and down on the track. And then this part right here, this will slide into this place right here, and this will slide into that place. And then on the inside, they will screw in or nail in this area right here. So there's these little spaces that go all the way through. And then on the other side is where it attaches, right? So that screw will go through the wall and then attach into this area here. And what'll happen is it will sandwich into this area. So this is what you'll get in the end. You'll get this window frame here, and it'll sandwich on the outside. And then you'll get your sliding window up here. Which gives thickness to the object. So you've got your wall up here. All this is wall. And this is now all window, and then there's a screw that goes in that compresses it so that the window actually holds itself in. And then they end up using sealing foam to seal the spaces that are out here on the outside, that are on the outside, in order to keep the water from coming in to the house. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. That's kind of a crude sketch, but my goal is just to kind of show you that things are designed a particular way for a particular reason. And if we walk by these things and we don't pay attention, then we'll never understand. So my goal is to get you to sort of understand these things. We also have things like microwaves and blenders and, dishes piled up, and we've got, a bunch of, things from school. Your kids come home and then they give you a grade report and you're proud of them, or they wrote a paper, or they did a drawing, pictures, post-it notes, other magnets, trash bags hanging from, these are just real things, right? This little trash bag with plastic bottles for recycling, all of our spices, a little sign that, I don't know, it has like maybe a verse on it or something, and a plant. We've got a rag hanging up here on the refrigerator. We've got bread. We've got cereal boxes. We've got some cans of things, just random stuff, and then a cat that's about to pounce. We've got cat bowl, this is a cat house, I guess. We've got a little ball for the cat to play with. Just to kind of give you some life in the scene without actually adding a human. But all of these little things, like this little picture right here, that's supposed to be a sketch of a picture, right? These little marks and the little drawings on the areas where the marks are, those all add context to the greater image. But before we even get to the context, which is really theme, right? So what I do is I have everybody block everything in. So they do everything, they create everything in just basic shapes, and then they refine. That's when they add, the overhang of the countertops. They add the underhang down here on the bottom of the counters. They add the thickness to all of their doors. They add the split in between them. They add the little deep shelves. This is where they would add, the thickness to the windows and the window frames, and they would add, not the curtains. That would be theme. They would add the thickness to the refrigerator. They would add, the thickness to, whatever square objects there are. And then theme would be quickly sketched, right? So you can see the difference between the clean lines of the refined block-in and the sketch of everything, right? So the sketch of the theme is really important. That means door handles. That means whether this is one door or two. That means, we have exposed hinges, which adds a lot of life to the image. Do we have dishes in the sink? Who occupies the space? Why do they occupy the space? And what do they add to the space, right? So we have a cat. We have someone that's a little disheveled that doesn't clean their dishes often. We've got a disheveled area of food up here. Nothing's really organized on these shelves. We've got, sort of haphazard placement of images, trash bag hanging on the exterior. So this person isn't as concerned with cleanliness or organization, or maybe they just have such a large family that they don't have time to do that. But then we've got this nice and orderly mat and this perfectly framed item. The curtains are perfectly in alignment and symmetrical, and we've got this plant sitting there. And so those things tell me that this space right here is usually reserved for someone who likes something at least a little bit neat for themselves. So I should probably zoom in on this a little bit. But this would be the theme sketch, right? So I'm just quickly blocking in these items just to get the theme inside a space that I already have developed. So I developed the space using the plan view and the elevations, and then I projected and transferred all of this information from an auxiliary horizon line to this space here, which I'll talk about in another video. But when I'm adding theme, I don't want to worry about the scale of the space. The space has already been developed, and then it's easy for me to just say, well, this is about a foot and a half, so I can fit a blender, a toaster, I could fit a small microwave. If my refrigerator's this tall, and my head usually sticks up to about right here, maybe a little bit higher. Whenever I look on top of the refrigerator, I can see, cereal and, whatnot. And how tall is that? How high up does it stick up from the top? That will give me a relative scale. How big are the dishes compared to how high the window is from, the window seal is from the sink. Things like that. How big is this toy here, and how big are these bowls compared to, the height of the cabinetry? How high up is the freezer door compared to the cabinetry? So everything is comparison at this point, and this allows me to freely develop the theme inside the space that already exists. This is likened to taking a photograph, right? So grabbing your camera, going to a kitchen location, taking a photograph and then painting or drawing over top of that photograph. But this will allow me later, you guys will see as you get into 2 and 3 point perspective, that being able to project from a floor plan and height or elevations is going to be very powerful, and it will give you guys the tools that you need in order to quickly develop a space in the right angle that you want with the right lens. And most people don't carry around long lenses or standard pancake lenses or zoom lenses that are super expensive, that will give you the degree of field of view that you want, that will give you the space depth that you want. Whereas in drawing, you can quickly do this by setting up your station point relative to your picture plane, getting your floor and your elevation plans correctly oriented within the auxiliary horizon line, and then project all that stuff down. And it's super quick. It takes about an hour or two, and you can control all of it without the need of a $3,000 lens or a $2,000 lens. And you can develop quickly. You can develop your theme very quickly. So anyway, that's essentially what we want to think about when we're developing a theme. And when we are looking at designing a space, we need to understand who inhabits that space, why they build things the way that they do, and just kind of be in the space ourselves. There's an element of, there's this sort of personal element where in picture making where you actually have to think about being in that space in order to understand the whys, right? You have to walk around in that space in your mind's eye in order to understand how to develop this kind of space, or any kind of space for that matter. It's very important that you understand as an artist or a designer that it's not just about the technical, right? So I could teach you all the technical and you can create this perfect space. But then there's this ethereal element, this mental element, this emotional element that you have to add. So the technical will get you 90% there, but that top 10% is what makes you valuable. I apologize. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So anyway, that top 10% is what makes you really valuable. So make sure that you guys are paying a lot of attention to how a space would really be for humans or for aliens, for that, whatever it is that you're developing this space for. Make sure that you're thinking about all those things, how they're built, why they're built. Thicknesses to objects are really important. Being able to add a grid that gives the space sort of depth of reference, like the grid on the ground here for the tiles. That was really important for showing how deep this space is, because without that, the space kind of tends to look flat. But because I have these foreshortened units going back in space, it really helps to fill in that distance, and then it helps you to gauge and your foreshortening when you start sketching in your theme, adding thicknesses to the mat and these little underhangs and overhangs. All that stuff really, really matters. And the kitchen is a good exercise because it is the most complex element in a house. So you have a wide variety of subject matter and conditions in which to deal with logically. You have a lot of information to sort out, and so it gives you, probably next to an art studio, this would give you the best space to learn perspective in and to learn how to theme. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys, and I guess that's it, you guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video if you like it. A little bit of interaction goes a long way for the channel. So I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.